Welcome to Hispanic Biz Success Stories. I'm Homero Galicia. We interview successful business owners to learn from them their story, how they built the business and why they built the business. Fascinating stories. We trust you enjoy today's story. We have special guests with us today, Mr. Frank Javier Spencer and his wife, Rebecca Spencer, who have a company called FXSA Civil Engineering. Thank you so much for being with us today, Mr. and Mrs. Spencer.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Mr. Spencer, what is FXSA Civil Engineering?
FXSA is a civil engineering and surveying mapping company that we also provide project management services for construction management, as well as subsurface utility engineering, GIS services, which is a geographical information systems, as well as we fly drones nowadays, and also we do stationary LiDAR scanning to service both our own engineering capabilities and other engineering firms, as well as a multitude of clients.
How many years you been in business?
Well, we started in March of 1979, so that makes it pretty close to 19 years. I mean, 39 years.
Wow.
30.
And Mrs. Spencer, you're the president of the company.
Yes, I am.
How long you been president of the company?
I'm going on 18 years now.
And how big is the company?
FXSA, I would say that we've had as many as 50 some odd employees. I think right now we may be at 32 employees. We have offices. We started out in Pecos, Texas, and with an office, and we switched to still have there here in El Paso and in one in Houston.
And your offices are located on Montana Street?
At 1130 Montana.
You fixed up a nice building. I used to deliver newspapers to that house.
To that building.
When it was a residence, yes, at the corner of Noble and Montana.
That's correct.
Mr. Spencer, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Presidio, Texas, a border town, just like El Paso, but a lot smaller, and it borders with Ojinaga, Chihuahua.
What was it like to grow up in Presidio?
I think it was a wonderful experience growing up out there. I mean, my dad was from Presidio. My mom was from Ojinaga, and I remember spending a lot of time in Ojinaga as well as in Presidio. I mean, every evening we'd go across the river to visit with my mom's family. And being a small town, we didn't have TV or radio, or the communication that took place was just between people.
Yeah,
so, and the newspaper would come around maybe once a week from El Paso. Eventually would get it through the mail maybe every 2 days, so
wow.
The communication was not there, but it was a communication between people, and I think that's what made it great.
And your father, what did your father do?
My father was in the business of, first in the trucking business in Presidio. He hauled cottonseed to Pecos and also cantaloupe, and he also had a jobbership with Phillips 66 in Presidio. He was a World War II veteran, and he was during his time of service in the Army Air Force, which was called at the time.
Right.
He was a bombardier on B-17.
Wow, wow. Yeah, I know that cantaloupes come from the Presidio area still. And Mrs. Spencer, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Pecos, Texas. I was born and raised there, finished high school, and then went on to Sulross State University in Alpine. That was the furthest I could get away from home. I didn't want to leave home, so that's where I grew up.
And your parents, what did they do?
My dad he worked in a grocery store in the produce department, Safeway, which is still around a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
And my mother was a stay-at-home mom. There were 6 of us.
6, how many brothers and sisters?
6, including me. There's 4 girls and 2 boys.
Okay. And where did you meet?
Well, we met at Sul Ross. My husband claims that he was taking an easy course at Sul Ross during a summer session, and that's where we met, and separated for a couple of years maybe.
Yeah.
When he went back to A&M, or Texas A&M, from where he graduated, and so that's where the story began.
Oh, fantastic. So you went to high school in Presidio, and then you went on to college from there?
Actually, I attended my freshman year in Presidio,
That's right.
and we were fortunate that I was able to go to St. Edward's High School in Austin as a boarding student there, and then attended a couple of years to St. Edward's University, and went out and finished my civil engineer, bachelor's degree in civil engineering at Texas A&M University.
Did you know you always wanted to be an engineer?
I've been asked that question many times, and I think ever since I was in the 7th or 8th grade, I knew I wanted to be an engineer, and I liked being outside, doing things outside, outdoors per person. So it was pretty early in my young life that I decided that's what I wanted to do.
How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have 2 sisters and 1 brother. I'm the oldest of the family.
Any other engineers in the family?
I have my brother's an architect, although he never did practice, but he did graduate as an architect, has a degree in architecture.
What was your father like?
My father was like any, well, as you know, the people that were in World War II, we learned that they recognized as the greatest generation. He was tough. He was tough with all of us, but he was always there to help us, to show us the way. And he was constantly working, and we all had a great respect for him. He really didn't speak too much to us, other than with his eyes would tell us what he meant every time. And so I think that most kids in those days that had any kind of, that had parents, I mean, that's the way they used to be. And
your mother, what was she like?
My mom was a very gracious woman, is a gracious woman. And she was also in business. She had her own ladies' fashion store in Presidio. The name of the store was Liz Fashions. And she operated that for many, many years. She came from a family of Her father was Lebanese, pure Lebanese, and her mom was a Mexican lady. And they were all of the family were in some kind of business of some sort.
So entrepreneurship is in your blood, maybe?
I would say, I would think so. I know everybody in her family is always working, from the sisters to the cousins to the sons and the daughters of those cousins. They're all entrepreneurs.
Wow. And Mrs. Spencer, growing up in Alpine, you went to Alpine High School?
No. I went to high school in Pecos.
I'm sorry, Pecos.
Pecos, and I went to college at Sul Ross.
College
in
Alpine. And what was your field of study?
Education.
Okay, so
Education.
you became a teacher, you wanted to become a teacher.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So what year did you both get married?
It was 1973. So
Okay.
we're going on, 44 years?
Wow, fantastic. What was your father like?
My father was a hard worker. Hardly ever missed a day of work. Every morning he'd get up and go to work. Tried to provide as much as he could for all 6 children. And my mom was a disciplinarian. He never touched us, spanking us or anything. And so my mom was the one that was the hard disciplinarian.
So did you carry on the tradition?
I think I did a little bit.
So what is it? Does some of that background still carry through in your life today in running the business?
Business was, well, actually, when I went to Sul Ross, when I started out, I was going for a business degree because I had lost my dad when I was 15. And being that it was a pretty big family that we had, brothers and sisters, my thought was, I need to get in there, get out as soon as I can, pick up whatever business degree or education I can get so I can get out and help my mom, because I'm the second to the oldest in the family. So when I went into business, especially business machines, I found out that business was not for me. So I had a mentor when I was going to school, my physical education teacher, and I followed my desire to go into education from that. And there were other mentors. I remember Mr. Hernandez, a science teacher, very influential in instilling us, that generation, to go on to school. And from the 6 children, 2 of us have a college degree. The others started but didn't follow through. So, and it was in the 60s when I was in high school, so that was during the civil rights movement, you know, and Pecos being a small community, there were challenges for us to overcome to keep on going to school.
What kinds of challenges?
What I can say right now is there was a lot of prejudices at the time in a small community in Pecos. If we went to the theater, the white kids could go into the first floor and sit there. The Hispanics would go up on the second floor, and right beside them, there was a sectioned off for the black people. So in school, it was difficult because we wanted to, you know, rise up and become somebody, but there were obstacles that kind of held us down. It was like we, the Hispanics, the blacks, weren't meant to succeed and go on with their education.
So that was kind of an environment that you grew up in.
Yes, I grew up in that environment.
Mr. Spencer, did you experience that kind of?
No, I did not. And I think the main reason is, looking back, is Presidio was a population of 1,500, a farming, ranching community. I would say that 90% of the people there were Hispanic. There were some Anglos that owned some farms, and there was a mutual respect between us. I mean, I never saw that. I never had that happen. I saw the challenges when I got to Pecos in 1976, but being that I did not have that same experience that my wife had growing up, although some friends, a good friend of ours that had lived all his life in Pecos, he basically called us in one night, or called us in to come in to have dinner with him, to express to us that, and he knew us well knew me and knew her as well, but he knew my dad and my mom for a long time, and he expressed to us that he wished we wouldn't stay to live in Pecos. He was a Anglo, because he felt like we were going to get our feelings hurt, that we weren't going to be well accepted, and he rather us not go through that. And I said that I didn't see that as a problem, that I saw it not even as just challenge, that I felt like I could do as well as anybody else I could.
So after you finished at A&M, got your engineering degree, what did you do?
My first job was with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and I went to work at the Fort Worth district office obviously in Fort Worth, and then went on to the San Antonio resident office with the Corps, and I lasted there for maybe almost 2 years, and then got out and worked with a small construction firm for about a year, and then went out and started our own construction company, myself and another gentleman in San Antonio.
In San Antonio. How long did you have that?
It went on for about 3 or 4 years. I'd say maybe 5 years, because it was a time, the economy at that time was not good. Work was down. Things were not happening right. Just economy was not right for us. And at that point is when we decided we came to a point in our lives, we said, oh, something's not happening here for us, so maybe we need to make the move. And we're actually headed going back to Presidio to kind of think things over. And we landed in Pecos for a few months in an effort to help my mom get rid of some of her merchandise, because that was during the time of the first peso devaluation that we experienced. Right. And she had a lot of merchandise, and she suggested that Becky could probably help her get rid of some merchandise by setting up a store in Pecos. So Becky moved to Pecos to start the store. I stayed for about, 6 or 8 months, finished out some projects out in San Antonio, Eagle Pass, in that area, and then came over to Pecos to back her up. In the meantime, I was looking for work. I didn't have a job.
So how many years after you married after you finished college?
Yes.
How many years? Because you lived in San Antonio after.
Well, we got married in 1973. At that time, he was in San Antonio, Fort Worth, San Antonio area.
Okay.
So when we got married, I relocated to San Antonio, lived there till we decided to come back to West Texas.
Okay. So, I mean, you answered why Pecos. I mean, Pecos was big where you were from.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it really was just by accident that we ended up there. We weren't planning on staying there. We were there to help my mom, like I said earlier. And while there, in looking for a job, I found out that there was an engineering surveying company there in town. And I went to meet the owner, and I told him I was going to be there for a few months, that this was my experience, and if he needed any help, that I would be willing to go in and help. And at that point, he just said, look, I'm not looking to hire anybody, but I am looking at selling my business. And he said, would you be interested in buying it? And right off, I didn't have a cent to my name. I said, yeah, I'll be interested. But I need to at least work a year or two with you to find out what kind of business you're operating, to get to know your clientele and get something going there.
Very smart. And that's what you did?
We started off, the pay was not enough to make a life there, so I decided to start building homes out there. So I would build homes, subbed out the work to people, even from people from El Paso and from Midland, Odessa area. And I also supplied materials through connections with some family members that had a lumberyard in Presidio. And I used to bring railroad cars of brick from Chihuahua to Pecos. And it was kind of like, this is how it got going. And so I spend weekends working on the houses, and during the lunch hour I go check on the work, and after working hours I go check on the work. So it was a constant thing, and within a few months I was doing better building homes than the business, but I knew that that's what I wanted to do, is to buy that business.
Okay, so you ended up buying the business?
Yes, I did.
And you might want to interject here that you did apply for an SBA loan.
Yes, the way that we arrived at, initially the gentleman that was going to sell the business said that he would finance the purchase. And then when we got close to working out the deal, he decided that he couldn't do it, that he would go to the bank and he would co-sign a note for me. And so we got close to doing that, and he decided, well, I'm not going to do that either. So it's going to be up to you, how you're going to work it out.
Wow.
So I said, okay, I'll get it worked out. So we ended up with an SBA loan, and that's how we got started.
Wow.
With an SBA loan.
From the SBA, their office in Pecos.
Actually, from here, from El Paso.
Okay. So you took on debt right away? Well, you expected that, I guess.
Absolutely.
There was no other way.
But so how long did you operate that business in Pecos?
We're still operating it.
Oh, okay.
We still have an office there.
So you never closed the office?
No.
Is that FXSA?
Yes.
Is that the way you started that business? Change the name?
Initially, it was, we had, in order for us to, I felt that we needed to keep the name of the person or the original owner, which was Fred P. Armstrong. So the deal was that I could keep the name for 5 years. After the second year, we changed the name and put our name on it.
And so you did construction and engineering at the same time?
I've always, there my whole tenure of FXSA, I did construction, surveying, engineering, surveying, and construction.
And so, as the business grows, you start your family. How many children did you have?
3. The oldest one was born in San Antonio.
Oh, okay.
And then the other 2 were born in Odessa, Midland. Pecos didn't have real good doctors, so I would travel to Odessa to go have my children.
What is that, 2 hours?
No, it's about an hour and 15-minute drive.
Oh, okay.
So 2 were born in Pecos and 1 in San Antonio.
Boys, girls?
The oldest is a girl. She still lives in San Antonio. Monique went on to finish high school in Pecos, and then transferred or went to college at. She started out at Texas Tech, but I knew that Texas Tech wasn't the school for her. So the following year, after our first year there, I said, "Why don't you try the University of the Incarnate Word in San Antonio?" And so she did, and finished with a major in marketing. The second one is my son, Frank. We call him Panchito. He went to high school in Pecos up until his sophomore year.
Freshman year, I think.
No, it's sophomore year. And we had gone through Roswell and taken him to school to look at New Mexico Military Institute to see if it wouldn't interest him to finish school there. And he said no. And so one day, finally, he was into football and all that, and his friends were in Pecos. He said, "You know what? I'm going to try 1 semester at New Mexico Military Institute. If I don't like it, I'm coming back." That's fine. It's up to you. So he went off and finished high school there, and it was the best thing he could have ever done.
Really?
Not that he was a problem kid or anything, but we just wanted him to develop more independence, more challenges in life, to see that he would go on and become somebody. And it was a great experience for him because it was keeping up with his studies, keeping up with football, and the military part of education. So it was wonderful for him. He was a quarterback of the football team and was a great quarterback. We went to every game. And he graduated from high school there.
Okay.
And then went on to Texas A&M and finished as an English major because he was going to plan to go to law school, but he changed his mind and talked to his dad. Was in the real,
Mortgage.
business
Okay.
for a while, but then he decided that he talked to his dad and said, "I'll buy your construction business from you," and that's what he's doing right now.
Yes. He has a business here.
Right. Yes. It's Aztec. Actually, he took over the name of the construction business that
Okay.
my husband had, Aztec Contractors.
Okay. Okay.
The youngest one, Rebecca, she graduated from high school at Incarnate Word High School,
Okay.
and also went on to Texas A&M, and she always wanted to be an attorney, so she went on to law school, and she is an attorney here in El Paso with the county
Okay.
office.
Okay. And your name is known here because I know you have a cousin who's an attorney,
Yeah, Joe.
Joe Spencer and his family.
Mhm.
So what brought the move on to El Paso?
Well, I think there was maybe a couple of things. The kids were growing up off to school, and we knew that they were going to be not coming back to Pecos, and I wanted to see. I guess I took it as a challenge. Can I get out of Pecos, have the business in Pecos, go somewhere else, and have another office somewhere else? And the choice was El Paso because the distance was shorter than it was, say, San Antonio. And I also knew some people here. And I saw it as a greater possibility to making it happen. And like I said, and of course, as we grew older, we felt like we needed to, I felt that, convinced my wife that to be in an area that we could actually have a theater to go to different things, functions that were not available in a small town. Be able to have an airport right there to us, who fly to see their kids or fly to wherever we wanted to go.
Wow, that's quite an interesting background, and your children are all educated and all doing well.
Thank God.
Yeah. Well, it takes a lot of work.
Yes.
But a wonderful story. I appreciate your story. And what kind of engineering is FXSA?
We provide civil engineering consulting services. The range of services in the civil engineering field that we provide has been of a range of municipal work, water and sewer, design of water distribution, water transportation, water transmission lines, as well as street designs, drainage designs, wastewater treatment. It's a whole gamut of civil engineering services that we provide to municipalities. While in Pecos, within a 150-mile radius, we provided those type of services to not only the cities, but the counties, the school districts, and for about 150 miles radius from Pecos, we service all those communities. We also provided services to the state, the University of Texas system, the Texas Tech University system, Texas A&M University system, also to Texas Parks and Wildlife. There's some. That's just a small list of people in the state that we've serviced. On the federal government side, we've had contracts with the Corps of Engineers, with the Bureau of Land Management, with the Forest Service, also with the Census Bureau, and that type of work also has taken us to do work in Virginia, and Louisiana, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Arizona, and then through the private sector, we provide to many people in the private sector, especially the oil and gas, the electric companies, and that work has taken us out to do work in Mexico, done some works in the Caribbean. In Mexico, we did work in 17 airports across Mexico.
Wow.
From the west coast to the east coast, and as far south as as Mexico City, I guess it was.
So you started your business as a business in Pecos. In what year?
1979.
And how long were you in Pecos?
We're still there.
When did you come to El Paso?
In 98.
Okay, so you were in Pecos a good time with your business, managing it there. And you also did construction.
Yes, I told you earlier the story about how the reason that of course, my love is construction.
Okay.
And then when you add the factor that you're designing and building, that even adds to that. And also, we do the surveying. So from the very inception of somebody saying we need to build something, we go out and survey the property. We survey the property from the standpoint to get information to do the design. And then the design is done. Then in not all cases, but in a lot of cases, we've done the construction as well. Wow. Design build projects.
Wow.
So the construction came early as well. Okay. And that included house building. We were asked to complete the Bureau of Prisons, or the Reeves County Detention Center in Pecos, Juvenile Detention Center in Pecos, in Fort Stockton. We were involved in the hospital construction in Pecos County. We assisted the Presidio ISD to come up with the funds and do a bond issue to get the funds to build the first or the second high school ever built in Presidio. And a number of buildings there for the school district. In just about every school district, we've done some work as well in construction, wow. Engineering and engineering design and construction.
Wow, wow! And you have 3 children.
Yes.
And 2 girls and a boy.
Mm-hmm.
And I know your son Frank has a construction company here.
Right.
And I guess he took over your construction business.
That's right.
I know he's an 8A contractor, and this year he's president of the 8A Association.
That's correct.
Or was past year. And so you moved to El Paso. Your children were already grown?
Yes, they were all gone. And so having the office there in Pecos to the present day, initially when we opened up in El Paso, it was going back and forth just about every week. And so that was hard, going over there, coming back here, and on and on. And so finally we decided to go ahead and find a place to live here. We had an apartment in Pecos. Well, we sold our house in Pecos and have an apartment there in Pecos. And so we decided to go ahead and settle and get a house here instead of renting a hotel and going back and forth. So yes, all my kids were gone, so it was easier for me and Frank to travel back and forth.
So what was it like to start a business in El Paso?
Well, it wasn't easy. I think the major factor major challenge that I had was that having worked in Pecos for, at that time, almost 20-something years, 25 years, we did all the work for the city of Pecos and Presidio and all those counties. We'd had competition, but the people knew us. They knew us as native people, or people from there that we cared about the communities, and when we were lucky that work went our way most of the time, not all the time. Coming to El Paso, the challenge was that now we have more competition. We're the new kids in the block, and they need to get to know us. So initially, it has been a challenge for the 18, 19 years we've been here. It was more so because of the need of being able to get out more to meet the people. I guess I had come from a the idea that people knew us, that we didn't have to really get out because they knew we were there. Here we had to get out and get recognized, and it took us longer than what it should have. We were very lucky the first couple or 3 years here that right from the inception of opening office here, we got a contract with TxDOT. And we had a contract with TxDOT in the Odessa district. That coupled with engineering projects that we got with the city, and I think one of the biggest milestones for us was getting a contract with the county of El Paso as a sub-consultant. We teamed up with a company out of San Antonio to go in and obtain the presidential permit for the Tornillo Guadalupe border crossing. And if my memory serves me correct, we started that project in 2000. And even till just last year, we were still doing work out there. It consisted of acquiring all the right-of-way for the highway, 6 miles of highway, which we designed. And the company out of San Antonio was a structural company, or is a structural company. They did all the design on the bridges. But that was a huge project that I guess was a big milestone for us. And because every project is no matter how small or how big, it's an important project for us.
So when you came to El Paso, you didn't have employees here. You only had employees in Pecos, is that right?
That's correct. That's correct.
So now you have how many employees in El Paso?
In El Paso, I would say about 30. And we have 2 in Houston and 1 in Pecos.
Okay. So you still do projects in Pecos and the Houston area. You'd also do municipal
We opened
work?
up last year, and it's obviously been a challenge there too, because the first thing we have to do is to get recognized by the city, the county, the Port Authority, be able to get registered and certified with them. So it takes a while to get all that done. And so this year we're making the move to actually get more work there. The one thing that has helped us is that a lot of the clients that we have here and in Pecos, their main offices are in Houston. So when I go to Houston, something that I did not do as much before is now I get to go talk to the people in their main offices out of the Houston, even though they may have satellite offices here, satellite office in Midland or somewhere else.
Okay.
We get to meet with the main people in the main office.
Good.
Excuse me for
Yeah.
interrupting, but something that I think back, and I remember that when we started in Pecos, we had 1 draftsman and yourself,
And 2 people in the field.
and 2 people in the field. That was all the employees we had. Gradually, we started, bringing in more people, but that's how far we go back and how we started, with just those 3 people.
Wow.
And Frank.
So when did you become president of the company?
I became president of the company, right about the time that we relocated to El Paso.
Why was it important that you take on that role?
Well, it's been a challenge because I work with my husband, right, and we're together almost 24/7. But I felt that I should get involved with the administrative side of the company. He does the professional work, in dealing with the clients and doing the work. Administration, it's a day-to-day operation, and that's what I handle.
And you enjoy that?
Yes, we've got great people, and that's another thing that has been so important in our success, I guess, through the years, that we've picked up people like in Pecos out of high school. They come to work for us, they stick with us, and they learn so much. We have had kids, well, I call them kids, but now they're adults, and they have always said, what we learned here is more than we will ever learn anywhere else because of the discipline and the dedication and the responsibility to do the work. We've had great people from day one. In Pecos, high schoolers coming out of high school stayed with us throughout. We had we had 2 surveyors that got their certification in Pecos, become registered surveyors from what they learned with our company. Here in El Paso, we've got great people. Our employees is what makes us. They're just very dedicated, very responsible, and that's what it takes.
So when did you move into the, you have your office is on Montana Street?
Yes, 1130 Montana.
When did you move into that building?
Oh, what? It's been how many years?
Well, we started first at 1001 Montana.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So, and I think we were there maybe 4 years. So, I don't know, maybe 14 years at 1130.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Same block?
Mm-hmm.
Same block. Well,
No, 2 blocks.
2 blocks over, yeah.
That's right, that's right. You started catty corner from the park.
Right.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
I remember
That's
that,
exactly.
that greenhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And so, do you run your business? Let me ask you first about what it's like to be a husband and wife running a business. How do you manage that?
It's tough, but it's a give and take situation. When he's stressed out, I have to be calm and, try to turn out the fires, put out the fires. And it works both ways. If he sees that, I'm having challenges come up before me, that he'll help me. I have to say that we have had a great relationship for the 44 years that we've been married, but it's a give and take, and it's a struggle sometimes.
Does business get in the way of family life?
It used to when my kids were growing up because he was so busy.
Mm-hmm.
But now that it's just me and him, well, now the grandchildren are the ones that are, kind of getting in the way because I, being the grandmother, want to spend more time with them. But not really. We work it out.
How many grandchildren do you have?
6.
Wow,
Yes.
that's neat.
6
And still
grandchildren.
growing.
Yeah, you're still growing. So as a parent, you never finish. I mean, the work keeps going on, the taking part with your kids, and then the grandchildren, well, it just goes on and on.
I'd have to say, if I may,
Please.
is that, I always tell family and friends that our kids are who they are today because of the mom, because she actually was the one that was there, 24/7 for them. And I was out working most of the time, if not all the time. But I think she gets all the credit for our kids. I give her all the credit.
But you played a significant role.
Most definitely.
Let me ask you, because you grew up in Presidio.
That's correct.
Did you grow up in a Spanish-speaking home, or?
Yes. Yes, my wife, I lost my dad when I was 15 years old.
Oh, okay.
Very similar circumstances as hers. And so, the youngest in the family was, I believe, was 8 years of age. I was 15. And at that time, they had just dropped me off to school at St. Edward's. And 2 days later, they came by to pick me up because my dad had passed away. So it was a tough situation. I mean, I wanted to stay. I mean, I grew up at the age of 8 years of age, working at my grandmother's store, sweeping floors, doing whatever it'd take. I remember when my dad had the jobbership, I had a small motorcycle at the age of scooter, actually, at the age of 12, and there was no bank in Presidio. And so everybody knew everybody in Ojinaga and Presidio. And so the daily deposits of the money we took into the bank in Ojinaga. And I used to drive across the bridge, drop the money off at the bank, come back, and sometimes I guess the tellers was a little bit high, so I kind of had to reach over to look at them. But everybody knew everybody, so it was no big deal.
Interesting. So
I learned how to type there with my dad.
Really?
At that age. Yeah.
So you did your banking in Mexico, and
Yes.
while you're in the U.S. That's interesting. Interesting. And did you grow up, Mrs. Spencer, in a Spanish-speaking home, or?
You know, it was, we were not allowed to speak Spanish in school
Right.
at the time.
Right.
So I think I learned it all at once,
Okay.
the Spanish and the English. I was bilingual. I think probably first the English and then the Spanish. But at home we always spoke Spanish. My mother had a third grade education, and so she was one that, you know, we'd come home and, no, don't do any chores. Get down, sit down, do your homework. I don't want you to grow up like I grew up and not have an education. I want you to get your education out of the way first. So she was very influential in that, and a great mother, always there for us. And so I learned both languages probably side by side.
So while you were raising your family, you had a degree in education. Did you work while you were raising your children?
Yes. First, right after I got out of the university, I taught for 2 years as the first Hispanic teacher in a junior high school.
Wow. In
Pecos.
uh-huh.
Well, the following year I got married. We relocated to San Antonio, and I wasn't working initially, but I was going crazy. I was so used to working, right, and I didn't have any children at the time. So I was going to go take some courses at the University of the Incarnate Word, and they told me about a job opening at a Catholic school, St. Pius V. So I went and interviewed, and I got the job. But the following year, I didn't go back because I was going to have my first child, so I didn't go back. When we came back to Pecos, I went back to teaching for probably another 3 years, and then got out when I got pregnant with my third child. And I had her, and a couple of years later, Congressman Ron Coleman opened up an office in Pecos, and I became his district assistant there in Pecos for so many years.
Wow.
Maybe 6 years, I don't remember.
And more like 8 years.
And then after that is when I went to work with my husband.
He was a good man.
Good
very,
man,
very,
yes.
very kind. I remember.
You might mention that you were board director with the region up there. What was it?
Oh, well, I served on as a board of director for the Region 18 Service Center.
Okay.
I was there for about 4 years.
That's region what?
Region
18?
18.
Okay. El
This
Paso
is 19.
Region 19.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you come to El Paso, you start a business. You're not from here, but you knew El Paso pretty well, and you had friends. What kinds of challenges did you face in growing the business? One, people needed to know who you were, but how about other environmental issues here? Like the culture, was it different?
No, I don't think there was much different. I guess I haven't been living in a water town. I think it's pretty much what I expected. There was a certain amount of a challenge with some of the local firms that felt like I was not from here, and I was from out of town. But I think very soon after that they realized that we were here to stay, and we get along well.
Good.
I don't see that as.
Well, you're established firm
So,
here now
yes.
and well known. A couple of things that you do that are a little different. You mentioned you do drones, and you also do GIS. I'm particularly fond of GIS. I used to go to ESRI GIS meetings in San Diego because I like GIS a lot, Geographic Information Systems. Why did you get into GIS?
I got interested in GIS back in the early 80s. I attended several seminars, but I was wanting to find out what it was about. And once I found out what it was about, I said, at some point in the history of our company, I believe we're going to have a GIS department to be able to service the municipalities that are going to need using this, and just about every entity out there. I mean, as you know, GIS has a world of use, and there's no limits as to what you can do.
So how do you use GIS?
Well, we use it from the standpoint of being able to, first we use it in our office to administer all our records or to do archiving. It's as you know, it is a database type of software or system of operations that you can input anything and everything you want from the standpoint of what we're trying to do is to sell it to the oil and gas companies to help them keep track of their leases, keep track of where their lines are located, where their wells are located. From the standpoint of the city, of the cities is the same thing. Every bit of infrastructure that they have or operate should be on a GIS system. With the utility companies the same way. I mean, it's not only a database, but it's also the means for operation and maintenance purposes, and it's huge. I see the day where there's some of the local, whether it's private sector or the public sectors, they won't be able to do it without it. There's a company in Houston that we have talked to, and I talked to the VP of the company, and we were discussing GIS, and it was a big surprise to me to learn how much he knew about GIS. Somebody that high up in the ladder to be so knowledgeable what GIS was doing for them. And this is a huge electrical and gas company in Houston. And so what he said was, if we didn't use GIS, I don't know what we would do. And I think that's what a lot of the companies are beginning to find out. Just yesterday, I talked to one of the largest owners of land in the state of Texas. That's the Texas Pacific Land Trust. And so now they have initiated GIS, and everything that they do, they got to have shapefiles. And that's the way they track their inventory, and they're enforcing that.
I came to understand geographic information systems through population studies, because it focuses everything on location, and a lot of demographic population studies use GIS, but you also use drones.
Yes, with the services we provide, I mean, all this different components, to me, is an integral part of what we do. I believe that if the drones, obviously, it was not until last year in February that you were able to get a license to operate drones, and we have three people right now that are licensed to fly drones. Obviously, there's a lot of people out there doing this, but a lot of them are individuals they know how to fly it, and they provide the service cheaper than we can. But the added attraction to our capability says that we are an engineering and surveying firm, that we will be certifying to any information we give you. And so the measurements that we're talking about are more exact measurements. We understand measurements, the purpose of the use of the aerial photography we do. And so I think that eventually the companies that are in the profession of surveying and mapping and engineering will be doing drones, or they were going to hire us to do it.
Fantastic. So while Mr. Spencer is doing the engineering, you're doing the management of the organization and keeping everything afloat as president of the company.
Yes.
Wow. So what is the legacy of FXSA that you're leaving? I mean, you're still working and still growing and still have growth. You're still growing?
Yes, sir, we are.
I think, from my perspective, the legacy of Frank Spencer and Associates, Inc., is that this man came into his profession with a lot of dedication and a lot of vision. And it takes a person with a lot of persistence and vision to make it in anything that you go into. And that's something that I admire about Frank. He's got a lot of vision, a lot of persistence, dedication, responsible, and commitment to no end to do the best he can. That's my perspective of Frank Spencer and Associates.
Fantastic. Wonderful story. I appreciate that very much. This
If
time goes
I-
by fast, please.
If I may, I think one of the other things that I think looking back is, as Becky was telling you earlier, that we had high school kids. Being in Pecos, we didn't have, a university there to get our engineers there. But everyone from the beginning of time, I had to teach him or try to teach him, not just the survey and the engineering side, but also the math, the geometry, the algebra, everything, so they could be able to help us do the work. And I can go back and tell you that the majority of the people throughout the 39 years, the majority of people we have are people that they grew within our company. There's people that, if you go and ask them, where did you learn to do this kind of work? They'll tell you they learned it there. So we showed everybody from the beginning. And the key and the reason we did that is, I believe that the reasons that why we're still around, it comes down to 4 simple things, and that is that we're honest, we're professional, we're responsible, and we stay dedicated to doing those things and in that order. And so when we look at a person to come on board with us, we look for those qualities in that person. That person can have a lot of qualifications on being able to do the work, but if he doesn't fit in that category, he's not going to be working with us. Or at least if we find out that he doesn't, then he's not going to be working with us.
You've built a very strong culture in your business, very strong, and very important. Well, it's a wonderful story. I appreciate your sharing, and I thank you so much for being with us. And as we come to conclude this program, I appreciate you viewers watching. Thank you for watching this program, and thank you, Frank and Mrs. Spencer, for being with us. Good day. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We enjoyed it.
Very well.